Hello fellow tankers, this is Dauntless, and today I'll be playing in the infamous Tier 9 Chinese medium tank, the WZ-120. Now, the reason this tank is infamous is because of its horrendous gun depression, or so I think. The gun literally can't shoot any further down than you're really seeing right here. That's an over-exaggeration, but it feels like it sometimes. I think the real stats are like -4 or -3 gun depression, something horrible like this. But it really makes up for it with its giant boomstick. It has a 440 alpha gun on a tiny little tank. This is pretty awesome if you know how to take advantage of it. If you know how to get over that poor gun depression, you can really wreck some havoc in this tank. This gun is actually the same gun that is mounted on the Tier 10 Chinese heavy tank. A Tier 10 heavy tank gun on a Tier 9, almost a light tank really because it's so small, but a Tier 9 medium tank. It's fast, it's maneuverable, and it has awesome camouflage, and it has a major bite. If you know how to exploit this, you can really wreck some havoc. Alright, moving on, we're going to get into the pre-game analysis. Using XVM, we can tell that both teams are relatively on par with each other. Our team being slightly weaker, mostly because of the handicap we have here with these two heavy tanks at the top. You know, they're not very strong, and this map really doesn't cater to heavy tanks other than in the city. Their team doesn't really have any high tier vehicles that are a threat to me, and they have this one T26E4, the Super Pershing, that's a good player, but to be honest, the Super Pershing is a horrible tank, and I'm not worried about it in the least. Looking at the tank lineup, they have 3 Tier 9 tank destroyers. And you know what? They're going to be sitting right here on this hill. Probably around D1, D2. What does that mean? Is that the city is going to be completely worthless to push. Because if you take the city, you can't get past them anyway. So going to the city just by that lineup is just a no-go. Plus, if you look at their lineup, they have no heavy tanks other than low tier. They're not going to push the city at all. So if you go to the city, you're going to just roll through it if you even have resistance, and you might as well set up your tent and roast some marshmallows, because you're going to have to cross a field of 3 tank destroyers, and you're just going to be wasting everyone's time. So, city, big red X over here. The only other real, strong location to push on this map is the 0 line. What did I say earlier about this tank? Gun depression. What does this area have? Hills. Lots and lots of rough, bumpy terrain that is going to essentially make this tank a fish out of water. So that's a big red X for me as well. They only have 1 artillery. While it is a good artillery in general, and it is played by a yellow player, and those are the ones that usually XVM snipe, again, I'm not really worried. I'm probably not going to be lit that much. If there were multiple high tier artillery with good players, yeah, I'd be a little bit like, maybe I'll go to the city. But for this lineup, not really worried about it at all. Looking at our tank lineup, again, our heavy tanks aren't going to be able to read the situation. They're just going to roll right into town and just sit there because they're like, oh, well, we can't push, but don't really want to drive back and help the team. So I guess we'll just see what happens. And you see this happen so many times. Heavy tanks roll into the city, base gets taken, you lose. So on Live Oaks, the western base is a little bit stronger, if you ask me, just because these hills do really help prevent tanks from getting out of the city, as where if you're on this side and they roll into the city and they take it, it's really hard to stop them sometimes. That being said, our team has a slight disadvantage because we really can't push the western side with those tank destroyers. And the eastern side, again, our guys are probably going to go there, their guys are going to probably go there. I am not going to go there.
Let's go.
Right off the bat, I'm going to push up and try to get some intel. More like just some easy free damage, really. But because of this tank's good camouflage, even though it has poor gun depression, I can just roll right up here and hide in this bush, and see what I can see. Usually I always spot at least 1 tank going here, and sure enough, there it is. I'm like, oh, I can take the shot, but really not enough lead. This gun does have really poor velocity with its shells. But I'm able to put in a nice, juicy 473 roll there. And you might think, oh my gosh, that's a huge roll for a medium tank. With this tank, that's actually pretty average, which is what makes this tank really fun, actually. So you'll be able to see here what I mean about horrible gun depression. And, you know, poor accuracy for a gun. I don't know where that shot went. I thought I fully aimed and so it would have gone in, but clearly it didn't. Here, I got lit, so I don't want to really poke out any further than I have to, but I literally can't get my gun down any further than this. And by the time I try to get another shot in, I get hit by Artie. Thank you for that, by the way. And he gets unlit. Our heavy tanks are pushing into the city, and our guys are being somewhat aggressive on the zero line. I know it's horrible, but I'm camping right now. I'm literally doing nothing to benefit the team other than possibly lighting something on that hill. But I know for a fact that if I push the zero line, I'm going to be in a very uncomfortable situation. And to even get my gun low enough to pop over a ridge and hit something, I'm going to get hit before I can. I'm probably tracked and ammo racked. And the second I die, this game is going to be over. As I said in the beginning, the teams are very evenly matched in terms of skill. Actually, we have a small disadvantage. And looking at that, I know that I'm going to have to carry, or there's a good chance we're going to lose this. And that means preserving my hit points and staying alive as long as possible, even if that means for the first part of the game, I just have to, you know, sit still and bite my tongue. I can't really do anything, but I want to. I want to YOLO in there so bad and help our team, but I know long term I have to not get in there, and people are probably going to be like, this guy's an idiot. These are the kind of unis that we hate because they don't actually help the team. They only care about their own damage. No, I want to win. And if that means letting my team just YOLO in and die, but ultimately winning, I'm sorry, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm playing this game to win, not to, you know, not to just be like, well, he tried, we lost, and he only got 500 damage, but at least he was there to support his team. If I feel like I'm able to help in a scenario and actually be able to hold tanks off or get adequate damage, I'll be the first one in line. You saw that with my my 113 replay. I was ahead of the line because I was confident. I was like, there's a good chance I can win this. But I've played enough tanks to where I know I can't do certain things without huge consequences. If I was sitting right there with that AMX 30, my reload is like 13 seconds. I would be killed so fast and probably ammo racked or caught on fire that I would be dead right now. I'd be over there dead, and there'd be a red Tiger 1 sitting on our base thinking, how am I going to stop this? They still have a lot of high-tier vehicles left, and again, I'm thinking long-term. I'm thinking this whole time, how am I going to win this scenario? How am I going to turn this around? I'm really all that's between, what, 3-4 enemy tanks and our capture and our artillery. I know our artillery is good, and he's gonna, at this close range, he'll be able to do some wicked damage and get some really nice shots in if I can keep them lit and if I can stay alive. There we go, good example. Put one right in, and awesome. I know his reload's like, what, 30 seconds long? If I can just light them again in 30 seconds, I'm golden. Nice shot into the Centurion right there. If you aim right above his gun mantlet and you have, I think, at least 250 pen, you should be able to go through it almost every time. But you can't hit the gun shield, and if you hit too high, you'll have an auto ricochet. So you got to hit that sweet spot, and it'll go in almost every time. Getting a shot, almost shot our Tiger there. But I don't know where that shot went again. This gun is kind of derpy. And you might realize right now that I am shooting heat. You know, I have all the tanks I really want in this game, and I have a ton of credits. I'm not ashamed to switch over to, quote, you know, gold rounds or win 8 rounds if it means I'm going to win the game. And that's because right now in this situation, we are completely outnumbered, we are somewhat surrounded, and I know that if I fail to even not penetrate 1 round, it could be the difference between losing and winning. So no, I'm going to hit that 2 key, and I'm going to make sure every shot penetrates the enemy. Especially with this tank where the gun is so inaccurate, there's a lot of times where I hit funky angles and just completely bounce random shots, and I'm like, why didn't that go in? Well, it's just AP can be really finicky sometimes, but when you have 340 penetration with heat, you hit something, it's just going to blast its way through with sheer force. So again, this is not super exciting, but you can see here I'm using cover quite well, haven't really taken any damage yet, and I know artillery is going to have a difficult time hitting me. I'm timing my shots well. I know this Tiger 1's taken a brunt of the damage, but I can't really prevent him from going out and getting himself shot. So I go here, I totally forget that I have a heat round, and I kind of just do a noob move right here. This Tiger 1's kind of being a dick, and he's like, hey, get out of my way, idiot. I'm trying to get a shot. I'm going to win this for us. Maybe not. Maybe he was lagging or something. But I'm going to just take out this guy. Got to be careful I don't hit our own Tiger. I don't even bother to look. I auto-aim, and I drive, and I shoot, because I'm more worried about where I'm going and dodging artillery than if I can hit that guy, because he's really the last one left on this flank. But what just happened, our Tiger 1 really didn't do that much damage there. It was mostly me and the artillery. I was able to constantly pop out every 10 seconds and keep them lit, so whenever the arty had a shot, he'd be able to take it. And I put a lot of damage downrange. I put like almost a little over 3,000 damage, I think, overall, just in that brawl right there. That's pretty good. And I didn't really take much in return. Now, they still have their 3 Tier 9 heavy tanks, or not, I'm sorry, tank destroyers. And they're, I don't know what life they're on. I know the Tortoise is not looking so good, but I see him pushing up right here, and I'm like, okay, he just took out the E-75. He's going to be like, I'm going to get the rest of these guys, and he's pushing in. Easy shot to the side. Fortunately, really low roll, and not enough to take him out. Now this right here is what separates the men from the boys. This is a super difficult shot where you can barely see a sliver of the tank. And this gun is super inaccurate, by the way. But knowing when to time your round and knowing when to fire and when you can get away with it, you can do things like this. And that shot did feel pretty good, I'm not going to lie. But taking that Tortoise out was pretty big, just because if he did decide to turn around and focus fire on that 704, he could have put a couple shots into him or get behind some cover and just really turtle up. And it would have just made things more difficult, especially with that Jag Tiger, who's a pretty good player, camping on the hill, no doubt. So that A44 is really what's lighting up our guys. And he's my biggest concern right now, because there are 3 tank destroyers, and actually there's only 2 now. But there are tank destroyers, and I gotta take this guy out. Fortunately, I was able to light him, or actually maybe our 704 lit him, but anyway, he died. That's very good for us. Spot the T-29, and again, you can see how painful this aim time is, but when it goes in, 450 damage. When you play this game enough, you get a really good feeling of what a tank's reload is. I waited just enough to where I thought, okay, I can shoot and probably hit him with a good chance, and he's just about to fire. And he did. He fired, but I drove forward right when he fired and bounced a shot off my turret. So, worked well for me. I'm going to push into the enemy base, hoping to light something here. Sure enough, there's a 704. I put the building between me and the 704 because I do not want to get hit. At the same time, I know Artie might try to shoot me as well. Using this bush for cover, and I spot the Jag Tiger. Now, I've kind of screwed myself in a sense, because I'm like, oh crap, I've 2 tank destroyers right in front of me, and artillery shooting at me. But now that I'm unlit, I can really take advantage of this bush and spot the 704. I am unlit right here, guys, and I am able to put a nice shot into this tank. This tank is really no bark, all bite. It hides itself really well, and then boom, you get hit for 440, and you're not having a very good day after that. I shot that shot early, but I was kind of get a good sense of when they're going to fire, and I'm like, if I sit out here half a second more, I'm going to get killed. So I waited as long as I could, missed, but easily able to finish him off right here. Now, they still have an artillery left, and I'm thinking, okay, he's probably going to shoot me pretty soon, so I'm going to just try to hide. And this is where it becomes a poker game. Jag Tiger is sitting on the other end, and he has no idea where I'm going to pop out. And I'm thinking, okay, he's a good player, so I'm just going to bluff and go right through the middle. And turns out he was looking right at the middle, but he just blew a shot, and now he is going to be dead. He's completely screwed. and this is going to secure the win for me right here. So just to recap really quick, I know right at the beginning I did not support my team. I shot a lot of heat. You might call me a noob, but guess what? I got 6,200 damage, I got some nice assist damage, and ultimately I carried the team like crazy and I won. Kind of sounds cocky, but you know, when you're going into a game like this and you're by yourself, the only person you can rely on the team is yourself. I've seen purple players YOLO and die within the first minute of the game. And it's just like, what the heck? You know what I mean? So when I play games like this, and especially when I'm top tier, I know what I'm capable of doing, and I'm going to do it, even if that means sacrificing my team. Because ultimately, in the end, I'm still going to be able to win the game, and I'm going to get a crazy good experience for it. So again, just to recap, I did not push into this area. If I had good gun depression, I would have, but in this tank, I didn't. And I let my team die, and I held the base, and I killed them all, because with that good cover that I had and my high alpha damage and my bad chat already just putting in shell after shell, they didn't even stand a chance, especially since they were mostly all low tier vehicles. You know, all the tank destroyers were guarding the heavy tanks from pushing city, and they ultimately, you know, they did their job, but tank destroyers aren't that great in being aggressive. So yes, we did lose, you know, 2/3 of the team over here, but I was able to stop them and then ultimately come back and finish off what the other tanks had softened up for me, netting me 6,200 damage and a pretty, you know, it wasn't a difficult win, but this is the kind of stuff that I like to do on average, where I'm not going to just push right off and get myself killed, because again, what I keep trying to stress here is that you play on your terms. You play to your tank's strengths and not the weaknesses. Don't put yourself at a disadvantage by pushing up against a hill full of tank destroyers or fighting on this bumpy terrain with no gun depression. You let them come to you where you're completely comfortable, take no damage, and do 3,000 back. And then come over here and just mop up the rest of the kills and be like, easy victory. Because you can. You let them come to you if that means you are an advantage. Or like in the previous video, you get up there on the hill with my 113 and you take that aggressive corner because you're fast enough to do it, and you can. If there are certain locations on the map that let you be at an advantage over the enemy, you get there no matter what. Even if that means letting them get through your team and come to you, or getting there before them and securing the location. So hopefully you guys like that replay. I know, again, not the best team play per se, but again, when you're with a team full of red players, you really can only rely on yourself. If I went in and sacrificed myself and died alongside my teammates, yeah, maybe they would have been like, this guy's a team player, yeah, he's a nice unicum, but we would have lost the game. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that gameplay and learned a little something. This is not the typical kind of stream video you would see on YouTube, because it doesn't really make me look good as a player, but again, I'm trying to give you something different. I'm trying to be honest with you guys, and again, I do get results. So if you like this video, give it a like. If not, go ahead and tear me to shreds down in the comments. Call me a noob. I'm always open to criticism.